Please welcome the host of Autoline, John McElroy.
Well, good afternoon to everybody here. I'm so pleased to be invited to be part of this program, and I'm here because I believe it's an important program. In fact, I want to interject a sense of urgency into what we're going to be discussing here, because I believe for the traditional auto industry, we're embarking on a very dangerous decade. For the traditional auto industry, there's a lot of issues that are coming up, and I would say it's even under threat. Let me explain what I'm talking about. Electric cars are great. I'm a great proponent of electric vehicles. I've test-driven literally every one that's out there. I really like them. But automakers, by and large, are building them for one reason. It's not because of market demand, it's because of government regulation. In the United States right now, electric cars account for 1.4% of all new vehicles being sold, and Tesla has 78% of that market share. So everybody else is fighting over a very small amount of sales. And the problem is, no one's making money on these cars. Not even Tesla. It's been publicly traded for 10 years. It's lost money every single one of those years. So when the best, which has 78% market share, can't make money, it's going to be a real struggle for the rest of the industry as well. Let me just give you some statistics to back up what I'm talking about here. Internal combustion engines have a lot of parts in them. Electric cars, not so many. In a typical internal combustion engine vehicle, there are 110 forgings. In an electric car, 10 forgings. What's that going to do to our forging industry? What's that going to do to our machine tool industry? The other thing, too, with electric cars, because they use so many fewer components than an internal combustion engine, if you dedicate an assembly plant to making EVs, you can get rid of 1 out of 5 jobs in that plant, maybe as many as 1 out of 4. So we can see right from these things alone, tens of thousands of jobs are at risk. That doesn't mean that we can't find other things for those people to do, but those jobs in the traditional industry are at risk. And when you get to autonomous vehicles, it's even a greater burden on the industry at this point right now. They are spending massive amounts of R&D money with zero return, at least so far. General Motors, we know, because it publicly puts it out there, is spending $1 billion a year on developing AVs with no return to show for that. I'm not saying that this is bad. In fact, I totally agree with what they're doing. I'm just saying this is the financial burden that these companies are facing right now. The other thing that is going to be a threat to the traditional auto industry is all the startups. Everybody's heard about Tesla. You've heard about a number of the other ones too. Faraday Future, Lucid Motors, NIO, Byton, Karma, Workhorse, Neuron, Atlas, Elephane. There's some in Michigan here. I'm sure everybody in this room has heard of Rivian. I'll bet most of you have heard of companies like May Mobility and also Bollinger. Maybe you haven't heard of Quadrabot. Maybe you haven't heard of Bordrin. There's a lot that are flying under the radar here, but are going to get better known in the near future. Here's the problem for the traditional automakers with all these startups. It's a rule of law that I learned a long time ago in my career. Every car that gets built gets sold. They don't take them apart at the end of the year and send the components back to the suppliers. Every car that gets built gets sold. May not sell in the time frame an automaker wants. They may not be able to make the kind of money that they want. Every vehicle gets sold. So every vehicle that a startup makes is one less vehicle that a traditional automaker's going to get. And that's what's really going to start to hurt the traditional OEMs, because as more of those sales go away, you're going to see less volume, less scale. So it's good to see that these startups are happening, but not enough of it's in Michigan. You know, it's mostly outsiders coming to the state because we've got tremendous resources here. But we don't have the startup culture that we used to have 120 years ago. Henry Ford, David Dunbar Buick, Ransom Olds, William Durant. We've lost that kind of startup culture. It's not gone. We need to nurture it again. Certain things that I think we can learn from are looking at Israel, which has become an incredible startup nation. Why can't we learn some things that they've been doing? And one of the key things that they do is recruit directly out of the military. There's a special unit called Unit 8200 that they recruit out of. Why can't we here in the Detroit area in Michigan start establishing lines with the Defense Department so that we can recruit the best and the brightest who are coming out of the defense industry and start to put them into our high-tech areas? Immigration, we bring in 1 million legal immigrants to the US every year, and these are people who are ripping up their roots. They want to come here, they want to work. A lot of them, very highly educated. What can we do to start establishing lines of communication to attract them here for our startups, for them to start here? The Pure Michigan campaign has done wonders for tourism in Michigan. What can we do to attract the right kind of immigration here? And finally, and the governor touched on this, schools. Our schools are not competitive, and that's putting it politely. It's the key reason why Amazon didn't even consider putting its secondary headquarters in the Detroit area. We are incapable of feeding from our own population the kind of talent that this state needs. We're doing a good job of bringing in talent, but we're not growing our own. We need a plan of how to do that, and it's got to be bipartisan. And that's why I think this conference is important. This is why I'm trying to interject a feeling of not panic, but genuine urgency, and one that's proactive, not reactive. We got to get things going, and there's not going to be any quick solutions. But that's why I say we need to leverage the power we've got. And with our traditional auto industry, we have got a tremendous amount of leverage. We need to learn from others, like Israel has done. We need to find new opportunities, like there might be with immigration. We need to develop a bipartisan plan for our schools, a long-term bipartisan plan. We need to leverage our connections with the defense industry, and we've got some good ones there, but they've got to grow even more. And we've got to depend on all of you taking this message everywhere you go. Family, friends, neighbors, coworkers. We've got to get this message out. The state's got to get going. I hope I'm lighting a fuse on all that. And with that, I'm going to conclude my remarks, and we're on to the next panel.